I'm a male to female transgender woman, and I just want to reach out to all my friends on Facebook who wished me a happy birthday today. I'm very appreciative and I am humbled. Today is my 54th year anniversary from the day I was born back on January 18, 1961, and I remember my mom and dad telling me that when I was born it was a snowstorm, and my dad had a hard time getting mom to the hospital in the snow, but they managed to get there, and then I was born, and it was a wonderful celebration for my parents, who got to rejoice on the happy occasion. I was the firstborn, and I was born a male, and I think about my parents quite a bit. I lost my mom many years ago, and lost my dad about 5 years ago, and it's not the same without them. I had a tremendous amount of respect for both my mom and dad, and I miss them deeply. But the reason why I'm doing the video is to just say thank you to all my friends who are too numerous to say by name. The list would be so long, but I just want to thank all of you collectively for recognizing my birthday and making me feel special. I am very honored and very touched. Friendships are very important, and I know growing up I didn't really have many friends, so I struggled quite a bit because of my own personal struggles with being transgender, and I was extremely shy, and the only things that really helped me was schoolwork and sports and dressing up as a girl. So I had those three things that kind of helped me get along in my life, and I just am taken back by how fast the time has gone by. It seems only yesterday I was in my early 20s, just graduating college and ready to start a career. And now I'm in almost my mid-50s, and I have a son who's 16 years old, who I am very proud of, and I love him dearly. And I will do anything for my son. He means the world to me. And I think it's important when you realize that there are people out there that do care. And I've been struggling. I have a lot of problems personally. I guess we all do. I'm obviously transgender, which is no surprise to any of you now when I made my announcement. I'm struggling financially. I am trying to successfully transition from male to female, hoping to have surgery. I'm trying to catch up on my mortgage delinquency, but everyone has hardships that they face, and life can be somewhat challenging, but I must say that the outpouring of happy wishes for my day today was very touching. I was really very happy to read all of your comments and your good wishes. I think, you know, when we get older, we don't want to recognize that our age is, I kind of remember when my dad was in his 50s. Sadly, I lost my mom. She had just turned 50 when she passed. But I remember my dad being 50, and I was in my 20s at the time, and I just couldn't imagine what it was like to reach that stage in life. And now I'm at that point myself. And to be honest with you, I don't feel much different from when I was in my 20s. However, with that said, I have quite changed. I have changed quite a bit. And I owe a lot of it to the hormones that I'm taking to induce a gender change. I take estradiol, which is estrogen, and spironolactone, which is a testosterone blocker. And I definitely can see the physical changes. I've posted on my Facebook page pictures of me back in early 2000s when I was strictly male, even though I was cross-dressing underneath my male clothing. I wasn't out at that time. And compared them to recent pictures of me now as I am transitioning from male to female. And it's quite remarkable, the changes. I've even received comments that are very complimentary, stating that I am coming along rather well with my personal transition from male to female. And it makes me feel good. It gives me a boost to my self-esteem, and it helps me because I'm very self-conscious and always concerned about how I present and if I'm able to pull it off, so to speak. I don't look at it that way, to be honest. I just want to fit in, basically. I'm not those super gorgeous transgender model girls. I'm just an average, ordinary transgender woman who's trying to be content and trying to find some sense of normalcy in her life. I'm not working. I'm on disability for depression, bipolar disorder, and that's a hard thing to deal with because it affects me in many ways. It's very lonely and isolating when you're not actively engaged in a work situation. And I probably would best be working from home and if I could find a telecommuting opportunity, I would jump on it. I definitely have the skills, and I'm just too self-conscious to work in an office setting with people around, especially as I'm transitioning. I don't feel comfortable with that. I had that opportunity where I was hired by a medical practice, and I was to serve as the financial controller, but it was very awkward for me because it was the first time that I was transitioning on the job, and the owner didn't have much patience. He was very demanding, so I had all this pressure on me. Plus, I was, pretty new to living in the female gender at work and going through emotional and personal struggles. So it was a rude awakening when they told me that they were discharging me from the company. So I was devastated, but surviving. And to be honest with you, I don't miss the office politics. I felt there was so much backstabbing. I hate that. That's not the way I operate. And I don't like that kind of setting, with people talking against others without them there to defend themselves. That I don't go for that. That's not my style. So I think it's better that I'm not in that environment anymore. It was unhealthy, and it landed me in the hospital. I suffered a breakdown after that. So I've been in the hospital many times, but it all stems from depression. That's the result of my financial worries. And once I started falling behind on my mortgage, that's when things really got out of control. I was as far delinquent as far as 4 months. Then I picked it up by liquidating my partial life insurance surrender value, where I was able to catch up on 2 months. So then I was only behind 2 months. But during the holidays, Christmas and all, I wasn't able to make payments, so then I fell back now 3 months. So I'm at that time frame where the mortgage company is threatening foreclosure, and I have a very limited window of opportunity to cure the deficiency, and I have to do it within the next 2 weeks, otherwise they're going to take foreclosure action. And from what I understand, I'm not an expert, but once they commence foreclosure, there's nothing you can do. You have to kind of seek attorney representation, and I don't have the financial resources to pay for an attorney to represent me. So I'm racing against the clock, and to be honest with you, the only money that I have available now is the disability account set up for my son, which we planned for his college. And I think I have to borrow the deficiency, which is approximately $6,000, to catch up the deficiency. I don't really want to do it. It pains me to have to do it. But if I don't do it, we run the risk of losing the house, and there goes my investment when I bought the house. So it's quite a dilemma, and that's really the reason why I've been in the hospital many times in the past 2.5 years. It has nothing to do with me on the female hormones. It has nothing to do with me transitioning from male to female. It has nothing to do with my, well, it's partially due to my gender dysphoria and my depression. Normally transgender people do struggle with gender dysphoria, and that's why hormone replacement therapy is initiated to address that. And generally, once you're on hormone replacement therapy, that helps you in dealing with your gender dysphoria, and it puts you in a better place. And that's what's happening with me. I'm much happier now, living and presenting full-time as a woman, and the medications I take, aside from antidepressants, I do take Zoloft, I take Seroquel and Depakote for my depression and my mood swings, and for helping me sleep at night. And I'm also taking estradiol, which is estrogen, and spironolactone, which is the testosterone blocker. And those are all medically prescribed. But there is one pill that I'm taking that I'm self-medicating on, and that's Provera, which is a progesterone. And the reason why I'm taking that, and it is risky, I don't recommend people do it, but I can't afford, I'm hoping to do SRS, and if you're not sure what that means, it's sex reassignment surgery, which is also known as gender reassignment surgery, abbreviated as GRS. And for those who don't know that, I'm sure you've heard the term sex change operation, and that's basically what it is. And that's what I'm hoping for. You know, I'm not a young kid anymore, and I'm very happy where I am, that I'm a dad, that I have a son. I love my son, he means the world to me, so I'm very happy on that matter. But I've always identified in the female gender. I've known it for so long. I was just 3 when I knew something wasn't right. So, you know, it's very true that most people who are transgender know from an early age. And it was hard. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. You know, I was desperate at times, and I was very sad and emotional. And, you know, I tried to do the right things that you would consider, you know, typical of boys growing up. But deep down in my heart, I wasn't that. No, I was a girl, and I knew that, but I couldn't express it. So, I went through life just trying to be happy and feeling like I had this huge weight to carry that I kept secretly I locked it up in my heart, and I couldn't tell anybody. So, you know, that was difficult. And what can I say, you know, life sometimes throws us curveballs, and we don't know why. You know, I struggled all my life with my gender. Excuse me, when I get nervous, I like to play with things. And if you saw my last video, I was playing with my hair clip. It just gives me like a sense of security, I guess you could say. But what was I saying? Yeah, when I was young, I knew there was something wrong. I always identified in the female gender. Um, but I managed to pull it off as a boy. I was into the baseball, I played Little League. Um, I was very good in math and spelling, and my teachers took good care of me. You know, I was a very shy kid, and I remember my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Blackbear. I went to school in Brooklyn. I grew up in Brooklyn up until my 12th birthday, and my kindergarten teachers, I had two teachers, Mrs. Blackbear and Mrs. Rubin. And I remember the first girl I had a crush on. She was an English girl. Her name was Diane Coffey. And way back then, I knew that I wanted to be like that girl. And she was basically the very first girl that I kind of talked to. You know, I was just innocent. I just, you know, told her she was pretty, and, you know, I liked her. It was my first crush, and it turned out that she wasn't the only one. When I went into the first grade, that's when I started Catholic school. My mom and dad enrolled me in a Catholic school, St. Teresa of Lisieux, in Flatbush, Brooklyn. And another girl that I had a crush on, her name was Karen Wilhoft, a German girl. She was very cute. And I remember always trying to find a way to talk to her. I was extremely shy, but she kind of helped me. And, you know, she was really my first girl buddy, if you want to call it that. I felt somewhat comfortable talking to her, and she was very nice to me. Um, so, I remember when I was young like that I was jealous of the girls in their uniforms, how they dressed, and the boys wore pants and shirt and tie, while the girls wore rompers, blouse, and a expo tie, like a color tie that was like an X. It was cute, and I remember I wanted to dress like they did, but that wasn't the reality for me, and I, you know, did what I had to, and made the best of the situation. I think that my teenage years were probably the most difficult, in the sense that I was now growing into young adulthood, and I was scared. I didn't know how to react to it. Certainly I didn't feel comfortable in my skin, and I wasn't thrilled with all the changes that were happening. You know, I was envious of the girls then, and what they were going through, and they were blossoming, and here I was having to start shaving, and no, it wasn't a pleasant time for me. I cried quite a bit back then. And I believe that most transgender kids do. They don't feel very comfortable. and it's probably very hard for most of us who go through that to find trust in speaking about it with someone. I desperately wanted to talk about it, but I didn't know who to reach out to. I couldn't tell my parents. I didn't have any friends that I could open up to. I was petrified to talk to any girls about it, and certainly didn't want any guys to find out because I knew they would make fun of me. So I figured the only thing I could do was keep it a secret and just try to fit in and fake my way through. And basically that's what I did. I was lucky that I was very conscientious, and also that I had a skill to play in sports. So that really helped me. And another thing that was very helpful to me was music. I used to enjoy listening to my records. We used to have a little Victrola record player, and I remember when I was a kid, we'd go down to the record shop, and my parents would give me an allowance, and I could buy maybe 3 or 4 records that I liked. And I remember I had the Jackson 5, I had the Beatles, I had testing my memory now.
I love that record.
Which one?
The Jackson 5.
The Jackson 5, yeah, my son loves Jackson 5 too. And I don't remember the names. I have a very poor memory. What? Rock and Robin?
I Love You Same.
Yeah, ABC is 1, 2, 3, right?
The Jackson. I Want You Back.
I Want You Back by the Jackson 5. And yeah, those were good. Oh, the Osmonds. I remember the Osmonds. And Sonny and Cher, I like Sonny and Cher, I Got You Babe. So I grew up in a good generation for music. And I remember watching Ed Sullivan with my parents growing up. And I remember watching Sonny and Cher. So, you know, these were escapes for me because other times I was dressing up, I was wearing girl clothes underneath my boy clothes, and you're probably wondering how I got access to girl clothes. Well, once I started working, I had a paper out in my early teenage years, so I saved all my pennies, basically, and, you know, when I had enough, I would go to the store. And at that time, I was very shy about buying girl clothes. But I found a way to do it because I was desperate to get my hands on a dress. And once I did, and I paid for it, I felt very euphoric. And then when I got home and I got to wear it, it was